Welcome back, guys. I hope everyone is doing well. Last time we left off with the inventory system tutorial, and I just wanted to follow up on that because someone had asked. Currently, we are able to drop items by selecting them on the hotbar and pressing backspace to drop them. And someone had asked whether we can do that through drag and drop. So just as you would drag and drop items across storages, can we just drop the item into the world? And as you can see, yes, you can. And today I will be covering how exactly to go about doing that. Well, not so much because I already wrote the code, so I won't be typing anything out. I'll just be going over an explanation of what I added. The place file will also be available in the description, so you can modify this as much as you like and take a look how it's written. Before I start though, I want to point out two things that are relevant or some caveats. And those are that, for one, when we drag this moonflower over the golden apple, obviously this is not a valid host slot because moonflower and golden apple are two different items. So the moonflower should just go back to the to where it was originally. So that's to say, just because a slot is not a valid host slot doesn't mean that we should drop the item in the world, right? We should still put the item back in its original position. And also, so in general, the only time we drop an item in the world is when we're not hovering over a slot. And also I want to say, the way the drag and drop currently works is that it's solely reliant on the mouse position and not on the slot that's being dragged. So what I mean is that as long as the mouse position is within the dimensions of the destination slot, that is considered a valid attempt at dropping on the slot. But as soon as the mouse position, I'm not talking about the hovering slot here, I'm talking about the mouse position itself. As soon as the mouse position, that white hand, is outside of the dimensions of the slot, that is considered outside. And you can see it dropped into the world. So that's how it currently works, but you can easily modify this to where you actually look at the dimensions of the hovering slot and see if it's overlapping at all with the destination slot. And that would be a more accurate way of detecting drops onto slots. But that's not currently how it works. I just wanted to say that. But nonetheless, this is still usable. Still a good system. You can easily extend it, but I won't be covering that in this tutorial. So now, without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. Okay, so I said that I was not going to write out the code, but I was just going to do a code explanation. But you know what? I'm actually going to type it. So yes, we want to drag and drop into the world. But the first thing I am going to do is, in the previous tutorial, I mentioned that I do not like calling remotes inside of these components because it's so hidden, right? It's not obvious that this component fires this on client and moved event to the server. It's not clear, especially not clear when everything else that we do, any communication that we did with the server from the client and vice versa, we've done in the character client manager. This keeps it very clear what all the communication, what communication is going on between the client and server. And so it's better to move this outside. But then how do we move it outside? Well, the way I'm going to do it is pretty simple. You add an event called something like on drag drop event. And so the convention I like to use is if a variable is going to be accessible or used outside of this component, then I like to capitalize it. But if it's specific to this like module, then I lowercase it. So make a, let's say, on drag dropped on slot. And then we'll make another one called on drag dropped into world. Okay. And so here, instead of firing a remote, we're going to fire our bindable event. What did I see? I named this something weird. So yeah, no, onslaught is right. Yeah, that's fine. We're going to just copy and paste this table that we would pass directly to the server. We're going to pass to our bindable event, and then we would do this inside of character client manager. So character client manager will subscribe to this event, connect to this event, and then it would then fire a remote to the server. That way it's very clear that on drag drop, that is something that we are doing. And so yes, so in the character client manager, I'm going to do this. So yeah, this is the hopper on backpack UIs, and I am going to No, I almost feel like this event should be general to the component, it's going to be like a static event rather than specific to these component instances. You know what I mean? So instead of making it instance specific, I might just make it global to the storage UI component. There's going to be a general event that exists on storage UI component, right? That way we just subscribe to it. We don't have to we don't have to connect to it for both the backpack and the hotbar, because that doesn't really make sense. But we can subscribe to it generally for like any storage, right? Any storage movement that happens, we can subscribe to it. And I think that makes sense. Yeah. So I'm going to, instead of doing this, I'm going to say storage UI component dot on drag slot. I'm pretty much just copying this and then making it global across all instances of storage UI component. So any storage UI component. So there's this one event and it gets fired for any movement across storages. It doesn't matter. It'll be able to intercept any storage movements. And same here. It wouldn't matter if it's backpack into world or hotbar into world. This will get fired for all of that. And yes, it gets fired. So then in character client manager, what we would do is we would require the storage UI component. Storage UI component. I'm going to say storage UI component dot on drag drop on slot connect function, and we pass in two tables. It's the from data to data. So here we can fire this. And replace this with from data to data. Now there's this num stacks. To be honest, that should also be part of from data. Like it shouldn't be a separate thing. But you know, whatever. Just for convenience, I'm just going to keep it as it was. Yeah, that looks good. And yeah, so it should work the same way. I don't see why it wouldn't. Okay, so we get our first error. So it's not okay. Connected now. Oh yeah, right. Because you need to do dot event. There we go. And let's see if we're able to drag and drop. Yep. As before, you can't do it into the world yet. We are able to drag and drop. And that is a good sign. So we didn't change anything, but we just moved the remote firing into the character client manager. Okay, so another thing I want to do is, here we have this host found variable. That's to say, like, did we find the valid slot to drop the hovering slot onto? But I want to add another variable to tell us, hey, did we were we able to like just release the mouse button on a slot in general, right? Like did even if it wasn't the correct host, maybe it was like it wasn't the same item, so you couldn't stack, but it was still a slot. So and we released on it, so that should still be true, right? So at the very top here, I'm going to say data that released on slot, because this would get called on the destination storage. Whichever slot it is would inform the parent storage that the mouse was released on it. And so if you don't understand how this works, I highly recommend that you watch the previous tutorial. Of course, if you have any questions, there's always the comments. So we set release onslaught to true. So we're going to say that if not data that released onslaught, then this is where we're going to do logic to see where in the world it was released. But if it was released on a slot, then we check host found, and if a host was not found, just put the hovering slot back in its original position. So that's the order of steps there. And I also just want to pass the mouse position when we release. I think it's a useful parameter. So in mouse drag service, only have the properties window up, Explorer. So mouse drag service. When we fire on release, we're just going to get the current mouse location and pass that in. And then from there, we want to take that 2D mouse position, and we want to map it onto the camera's view. So that would turn it into like a 3D position, basically. And I'm not going to explain everything because that's all of this will be done by this function called screen point array. And pretty much it takes that 3D position, maps it onto the 3D camera's a viewport frame, and then also creates a unit vector that's pointing in the direction of the camera. So there's a def4 and post that I'm just going to copy and paste because it already has this logic. Give me 1 second. Okay, yep, there it is. I'm going to remove some things that I don't need. We already have the mouse position, and then this is the workspace camera. All right, okay, yeah. So remember, we don't want to be doing this logic directly inside of directly inside of this component. We would like to do it outside. But anyways, let me go ahead. Raycast. Right, so you have screen point array, and the array's origin is just that 3D mapped position of your mouse. Array direction is the direction the camera is facing. And this is some distance that we want to, how far we want the array to extend. And then your raycast parameters, which we'll just leave empty, but you can modify it as you see fit for your use case. So if result, that means that the array actually hit something, then that means that we were able to release it into the world. Storage component that. And then we want to say the self.storage name, and the slot index, slot index, and the position where we released it. That's going to be the result position. This is going to be the 3D, because from the camera's viewport frame, we project a ray down, and it's going to hit somewhere into the world. Where it hits in the world is the result, that position. I'm just going to rename this raycast result. Doesn't really matter too much. And that looks good. But if the raycast wasn't able to hit, then we'll just move, we'll just redraw the slot, the hovering slot, in its original position. That looks good to me. So then, back in Character Client Manager, we'll say storage drag component that on drag into world. We do the same parameters: storage name, slot index, and mouse position. We're going to create a remote event. Insert remote event. It would be something like that. And of course, in our case, we would only want to drop an item if it's even equipable in the first place, right? Because on your inventory, you might have other types of items that you cannot drop. For example, if you have abilities, it doesn't make sense to be able to drop an ability. And maybe it does in your game, but sometimes, generally, there are cases where you shouldn't be able to drop something into the world. All our inventory events will hit this inventory server receiver, and so we will add connection for when they drop it in the world. Player storage name, slot index, mouse position. And then we would, this won't return anything, so. But we're going to create another bindable function on the player, in the players, in the characters folder, to drop item in the world. And easy to make that bindable function. Rename it drop item world script that drop item in the world. I'll invoke this function. Storage name. Find this num stacks. Yep. There is the Roblox AI assist coming in clutch. No. You got this wrong. It's not num stacks. Okay. Oh yeah, I got this completely wrong. So it's storage name slot index and then mouse position. There we go. And yeah, so the logic we do from here is going to be similar to our unequip item action handler. This is the logic that runs when you select the item in the hotbar and then you press backspace to drop it. So we're going to do a similar thing, but the way we're going to do it is we're going to local storage equals storage name, get the storage that from where we are dropping it, and then we're going to remove it from that storage entity and then add the slot index. Hold on, let me get my charger so I can charge this laptop before it dies. Okay, that is good. You remove the entity, and then once you remove the entity, remember when we call remove entity without passing in a number of stacks that we want to remove, it will remove all the stacks of that slot. Not wrong. This one is the server. You can see if num stacks is nil, then we would just remove all the stacks. So yeah, I do want to I do want to know how many stacks we are removing. So I'm going to say num stacks storage slot index num stacks. That way I can clone all the number of stacks. I can clone that many into the world. And another thing is, so a lot of the logic is similar to here. So I'm going to add a tag to the removed entity so that it can be picked up. It can show the proximity prompt and everything. And then I'm going to move it to the position. Not really accurate to call it mouse position because this is our 3D position in the world now. So now we're going to move it there, and yes, so we're going to say for each item, I'm going to say I'm going to clone the removed entity. And then I'm going to say parent is equal to workspace. And that should do it. Obviously we can't trust whatever the client's doing, so to be honest, you should check to make sure that this would be possible. For example, like, can that item even be dropped in the first place, right? Those are checks you should be adding on the server. It all depends on your use case. So that is it, and I believe this should work. Let's play the game. Let's get those errors. Okay, inventory server expected identifier when parsing expression. Oh, looks like I accidentally added parenthesis there. Cool. Take our golden apple, drop into the world. We get error, attempt to index nil with slot. All right, so I think I found the issue. So this should be self-storage model storage name, because the storage model that has that houses all the data, including the name of the storage. So we're just using the storage model storage name. Yep. Play this. Now we cast to vector 3 to C frame. Okay, yeah. This one is a basic error. New C frame dot new. World position. Okay. See the golden apples get added to the world. You drop moonflowers. They get added to the world. And it looks like it works. Voila. So yeah, that is how you add the ability to drag and drop into the world. If you enjoy this content, please subscribe. Really helps. Also, if you leave a comment, just, it could be anything, just something that you appreciate about the video, or, it could be questions as well. Also, I have a Discord channel if you want to join that. And yeah, see you in the next tutorial.